Hello again, welcome to my studio. Today we're going to do a new project based on the work of one of my favourite artists, Matisse. We'll look at colour and shape and space on the picture plane, using still life as our subject matter. So I think it's time to get on. So first of all, here are my materials and the still life. Apologies for the tulips, they're slightly past their best, but I'm going to work from a photo so you'll be able to see what I'm actually looking at. My acrylic paints, my acrylic pens, and some of my actual paints that I've used, different makes and so on. And so we'll get started in a second. So the first we're going to do is to have a little think and a little look. This is a typical Matisse picture that I've of this particular period, which I'm really thinking of and using as inspiration. You can see strong colours, flat colours, colours which are similar in tone in many places, and so on. But this is just to give you some ideas, because you don't have to be Matisse, you can just be influenced by him. This is the still life that I showed you before, and that I've done the photo of, so that you can see what I'm doing. The first thing I did was to do a drawing. Actually, the drawing was very useful because I decided to first of all crop it, and also to eliminate another little dish that I had there. So I thought I'd just show you just this working drawing, as it were. It made me realise that it was a bit too busy and that I had to crop it, and I also had to cut out one or two shapes. So now we'll begin to paint. So just as a little colour experiment, I've put colours next to each other which have different properties, and which you can see, get an idea of what they do, and it would be quite fun for you to try out colours as well like this. So if you look here, you've got red and green, which are complementary. They're similar in tone and they push each other apart, but they still sit on the same picture plane. With these two, the colours are very close, the tints are very close, the colours, the actual colours, in as much as they're pink and a red, so pink is a kind of red, they're also sitting very close together. If you photocopied this, you would hardly see a difference. Same here with blues, which are close together, ultramarine and a more greeny blue here, but very kind of tight together. If you look at the one at the top here, you can see that you've got lights, darks, which are gradating, if you like, to lights. So you've got a very dark one here, and a little bit less dark here, quite a lot less dark here, and I'm guessing really this is a tiny bit less dark, but what you can see is that they kind of push each other away so that you don't have a sense of flatness. You'll see when we look at when we start painting, you have a sense of space going back. So sometimes the dark will push the light forward and vice versa. And here you've got a dark and a medium tone, again, which I think are sort of pushing each other a little bit forward and back. Here the tones, again, quite similar, and sitting close together, but the properties of the colour are distant, so you see a sense of shape which are separate, and pretty nearly on the same picture plane. This is a tiny bit lighter. So let's get on with the painting. So the initial thing you're going to do is to draw your shapes in, your objects in. I've drawn it in pencil because it would save me time actually to show you, but you don't have to necessarily draw it in pencil. You could draw it straight, either with a small pointed brush and paint, thin paint, or actually I've used one of our Posca pens, which is so useful. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the shapes, but I'm going to leave little spaces, so I'm trying to be very free. His work is very kind of lyrical and free, and he leaves spaces and shapes which sort of help to describe but don't outline as such. They're showing shapes. So again, working quite fast. If you want to, after this, you can always rub the pencil out. Probably not a bad idea. Literally putting in your shapes, putting in all the marks that I've put in. I've chosen a patterned cloth. He was very interested in textiles. He came from a textile town, apparently. So I've used a very kind of brightly coloured piece of material, which will give us the pattern that he so loves, and that I love as well, actually. I'm very influenced by him as well. And carry on putting on your shapes until you have the whole still life put in. And you can see I'm being quite sort of loose and free, getting in the actual shapes of the objects, obviously, but leaving spaces so that we can keep it nice and loose, free and beautiful, like he does, if we can. So patterns are sort of springing out, as it were. Putting in the tulips, my now dead tulips, unfortunately. Putting in shapes, trying to get a feeling of the lyrical. So here's one I prepared earlier. I'm just going to put in another leaf to show you that I have approached this in exactly the same way. Put down shapes, left a few spaces. I've decided, I think, to not put in the orange and this buff colour, because his paintings are often kind of surrounded by one colour, and red is a colour he likes to use. So I've turned the pink here into red, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and put red down initially as in all the negative spaces. So here we go. I'm using colours very much straight from the tube, because they're nice and sort of saturated. Saturated means that there's a lot of that colour in it, if you like. It's not spoilt or changed with another colour in it. I'm painting in, but I'm actually trying to leave a few spaces as well, just to leave spaces around about. I've got a smaller brush here as well to do smaller areas. So just put in shapes, be quite sort of loose. Again, he had this lovely way of making brush strokes. They were so painterly and beautiful and confident as well. So try to be confident in yours as well. I'm trying to be as well. So I'm going all over this sort of background set of shapes, obviously just leaving out anything, and I'm feeling that I'm kind of surrounding these shapes, the still life, with this red, so that it sort of encompasses in fact it sort of makes a flatness, you'll see, as we start to build up the other colours. So keep track of everything I'm doing here, not being worried about necessarily being too tight going to shapes, because, as I say, I'm just loosely covering the negative shapes between the objects and also on the pattern. Colour down here, sort of slightly easier to use a smaller brush, I think. Just putting down flat colour. And work into them later, but again I'm going to bring the red all the way down, change my brush over. If you know that picture, The Red Room, you might want to look that up. I'll probably show it to you later. You'll see how he does this to the absolute extreme. I'm trying to just be inspired and learn from him, really. He's one of the first artists that I ever looked at, and I've never stopped loving him. So you see I've got little bits showing as well. Coming down here, maybe between the handle of the jug. Okay, so now I'm going to put down some flat version of the colour of the this lovely jug. which looks quite Matisse all on its own, I think. So again, just putting down light colour, light shapes, light, putting colour down so that it kind of indicates a shape but doesn't outline a shape. We're not trying to fill in, and it is a little bit tempting to fill in. So this is not a colouring book. You see, I work quite fast, and acrylics is perfect for this. Obviously, he would have used oils, more perfect, but we use acrylic, and you get a lovely effect of texture if you use quite a thick amount. Use a smaller brush again. Make sure your water's clean all the time so you get lovely pure colours. A mistake that I made while I was preparing this, I kept having to clean my brushes and work over the top. You can use any colour as an outline. I think blue's one of the best. I think it's a quite sort of comfortable colour to use. I think he used a lot of black. I haven't used so much black in this, but I am going to use a tiny bit of black now, which is quite unusual for me. I'm going to use it for part of the this little sort of pot thing. I'm going to use it for the dark shape here. You can mix colour, mix a dark as well. I'm usually very anti-black, so this is a whole new thing for me. And then I'm going to use a dark purple to show a lighter bit of the pot. I'm just, again, I'm work fast because you can start to work slower and more carefully later on, and acrylics are so comfortable and so friendly, they'll let you work over the top, so you don't necessarily commit yourself terribly if you make a bit of a mistake. And then yellow for the bottom of this pot. Always like the shape of this pot. Seem to have lost the little curve of the pot here, so I'll get that back in. You can always draw back into it as well if you want to. And then I'm going to maybe do lemon for the lemon. Bet it'll be dirty. No, it's not too bad. And again, nice and fast and working quite fast, so that you're not stopping to be too tight.